Reddit Ask Me Anything. I'm Elizabeth Smart, Abduction Survivor and Advocate. Ask Me Anything. The abduction of Elizabeth Smart was one of the most followed child abduction cases of our time. Smart was abducted on the 5th of June, 2002, and her captors controlled her by threatening to kill her and her family if she tried to escape. Fortunately, the police safely returned Elizabeth back to her family on the 12th of March, 2003 after being held prisoner for 9 grueling months. What's your opinion of journalists after your personal experience? Was there any good for you that came from them and their reports? Did you see so many as exploitative? I think the media is like a double-edged sword. It has huge power for good, but at the same time it can come at a cost. For me, the majority of my experiences have always added to the greater good. There are a few exceptions, however. Did you suffer from PTSD? How was the treatment? How long was that road? I feel extremely blessed in that I have not suffered from PTSD. I have had flashbacks. I now have aversions to things that didn't bother me before. But that's it. What would you most like to tell us that no one has asked? My favorite movie is Eddie the Eagle. I can eat Ben & Jerry's Cherry Garcia by the pint. And my toughest boss is my 2-year-old daughter. What misconceptions about your abduction would you like to make people more aware of? I couldn't just run away. I couldn't just scream out. Everything I did to survive. I never suffered from Stockholm Syndrome. I never identified with my captors or cared about them. Every decision was made with survival in mind. Thank you so much for clearing up the misconceptions about Stockholm Syndrome. I read your book a few months ago and appreciate so much your willingness to share your experiences and help others by doing so. God bless you and your family. Were there moments when you thought this is it? Conversely, were there moments when you thought this will all be over soon? Yes, there were lots of times I thought, this is it, I'm going to die, whether if it was directly at the hands of my captors or through consequences of their actions. It was hard to believe it was over until I was in my dad's arms being hugged at the police station. Your dad was amazing. He managed to keep you in the public's mind without turning the rest of the family into a sideshow. He did an excellent job of humanizing you. I think we all felt like we knew Elizabeth Smart on some level, as a daughter or niece, or as that pretty but quiet girl in school. I second the suggestion he run for president. Did you ever have any contact with Nancy Grace after the garbage she tried to pull with you? BTW, I don't think you could have handled that any better. Thank you, and no. In your opinion as a children's advocate, what are some practical, common sense steps parents can take to help their children avoid abuse? And I guess I mean abuse in a general way, anything from extreme bullying to abduction. Make sure your child knows that they are loved unconditionally, and make sure your child knows what unconditionally means. Make sure that your child understands that no one has the right to hurt them or scare them in any way. It doesn't matter what that person may be. Family, friend, religious leader, community leader. It doesn't matter. Should anyone hurt your child or threaten them in any way, they need to tell you. The most obvious question is, how are you doing? And also, what type of therapy has helped the most? I'm great. You have to find what's right for you in therapy. There's no formula for everyone. For me, my family was huge. I found my music extremely therapeutic. I have always found horseback riding and being in nature therapeutic. What was it like trying to rejoin society? Did people always want to ask details, or have they generally been respectful? People have almost always been very respectful. The hardest part about rejoining society was realizing that I would never go back to being the old me. Is there anything you noticed in your captor, whether it be a certain look or manner of speech, that would serve as a red flag for you if seen heard from another person? Or, rather, can you sense if someone you encounter is capable of such a thing? There are things that make me wary, one of them being when someone uses religion excessively to justify what they've done or are going to do. How did you meet your husband? How has he been involved with your advocacy work? We were both serving missions in France for our church, and that's where we met. He supports me so that I can do my advocacy work because it can be emotionally taxing. I am a survivor of human trafficking, which actually started around the time you had went missing. When you were found, I remember it giving me hope and something to keep working toward because it reminded me that there are people out there who care. What was the hardest thing you faced in terms of speaking out and becoming an advocate? I still have so much guilt tied to my experience, and I'm 30 now, and while I've worked through so much of that, I can't seem to fully accept that it was something that happened to me, not something that I did. If there was one main thing that you wanted to tell a survivor about speaking out, what would it be? The hardest thing about speaking out and becoming an advocate was the fear of having everyone know what happened to me. The one thing I would tell a survivor about speaking out is no matter what people's reactions are, you deserve happiness, you deserve love, you deserve support, and you deserve to know that you are worthwhile. This is lovely and true. Hi Elizabeth. Thank you for opening yourself up to us in this manner. I've held you in my thoughts and heart for years. Just wishing you the best. I'm just wondering, in general, how did your friends treat you after your return home? Have you stayed in contact with any of your friends from before your abduction? And were you able to find support in your friends upon return? Yes, I still have many friends from before I was abducted, and it was awkward maybe the first 2 seconds I was home, and then things just picked up where we had left off. Those are some quality friends. Has your abduction created any challenges for you as a wife and a mother? Well, my husband doesn't like being called Mr. Smart, but other than that, no, or that I've yet to experience. That's when your dad should pop up and go, actually I'm Mr. Smart. How is it being a reporter for Crime Watch Daily? Do you like that type of work considering your past? I like doing Crime Watch Daily because it feels like I'm able to help someone share their story without re-victimizing them because I've been in their same shoes. What is your favorite hobby? These days my hobbies are my kids, but I like to listen to Audible when I have a chance and the Great British Bake Off. In 2003 you were known as the girl who was kidnapped. Today I think your advocacy work is defining you. In 40 years, when the public hears Elizabeth Smart, what do you want them to think of first? Or to desire a life outside the spotlight, where people don't recognize your name? I'd be lying if I said anonymity wasn't tempting, but I want to continue advocating until change happens. It would also be nice to be known as a wife, a mother, a friend. Is there anything in the moment that you did that you specifically think saved your life until the police came? There were a lot of things. Every decision I made was with survival being the end goal. Specifically, learning their tactics and eventually using those tactics against them. Smart Elizabeth. I hope no one misreads this and thinks it is a negative comment, but I was curious, in the age of social media, with your specific situation, how do you deal with chuckleheads trying to get noticed at your expense, either by harassing you or just posting flat out lies about you or your situation that thrust you into the media spotlight? Also, how do you handle, mentally and emotionally, any fake news stories written about you? The answer to both those questions is the same. I used to read every article and every comment posted about those articles, and it made me feel terrible. My older brother one day said, "Elizabeth, who cares what these people think? Who cares what these people say? Stop reading them." So, I stopped reading them. First, want to say I'm so impressed by all your incredible advocacy work, and how you've given other survivors of sexual assault such strength. My question is, how have your experiences and your abduction influenced how you raise your own children? Would you say you're overly safety conscious or cautious? Thank you for doing this Ask Me Anything. You're such an inspiration. It's a constant struggle between being overprotected versus wanting to let my children experience life so they're prepared for the future. Fortunately, both of my children are young, so I control most of their activities, but as they get older I think that it will be a constant battle between letting them experience life on their own terms and wanting to protect. Do you think social media is a net good for the world? I'm still debating that. It could be, but I'm not convinced yet. I understand that you came from a religious background, and your captors justified their actions with a very sick and twisted version of religious belief. Do you feel a lot of echoes of that, or have trouble moving back to and reconciling your own faith? No, my faith helped me survive what I did, but when people justify everything they do through religion, it makes me wary. Did your Mormon faith have an effect on how you were able to make it through your experience? Is your faith any different now, having gone through what you did? Yes. My faith period played a big part on how I survived. Yes. My faith has changed. I've gotten older, it's widened, it's expanded. It's grown since I was a 14-year-old girl. Do you often get recognized when you're out and about? How do people react? Thanks for hosting the Ask Me Anything. Yes, I get recognized all the time, especially when I have no makeup on and greasy hair. But people are always very kind and just want to express well wishes and gratitude. But it should be expressing my gratitude to them. How do we change the mentality and social norms that make survivors of sexual abuse feel worthless? Sexual abuse is so prevalent today, chances are it's not just one person you know that experienced sexual abuse, but many people that you know that have experienced it. We need to be able to address these issues openly, talk about them regularly, and be supportive when survivors do come forward. I was sexually abused and for some reason, I didn't turn it inward. I never felt like I was releasing information about myself, as explaining why I had a crappy dad. I'm also happy to say, in spite of counselors telling me that if I was abused, I'd abuse my kids, were absolutely incorrect. I'm pretty close to maniacal in making sure my daughter does not experience what I did. BTW, I did think they were the ones that were nuts when they said it. Living well and maintaining the capacity to love is the best revenge. Besides, you know, being a mom. When did you realize how big your story had become in the media? What was it like dealing with that in addition to the traumatic experience? I'm still amazed at how big my story was and the interest people still have in it. Having everyone know who I was probably the hardest part about coming back. Many religions teach from a young age that sex is to be saved for marriage, and that no one will want you if you've already had sex. A church teacher of mine used an analogy about nobody wanting chewed gum. Do you think the way this is taught can enable sexual abuse because victims don't want anyone to know they're used? How do you think this, admittedly difficult, subject should be taught to young people? I think it's fine if it's your belief to teach to wait to have sex until marriage. However, I think it is imperative that no analogy like chewed up gum be used, because no matter what your sexual orientation, preference, or when to have it is, it will not detract from your worth as a human being. So, yes, change needs to happen in the way it is taught. On a lighter note, what's your favorite movie? The BBC Pride and Prejudice, the 6-hour one. This is my favorite ever Ask Me Anything answer. You can take 4 trips. Money and time don't really matter, but you have to go only to do the following: adventure, culture, relaxation, adventure and culture and relaxation. Where do you go and why? My husband just asked me the same question. Alaska for adventure. 2. India for culture. 3. Toss up between Bali and Tahiti for relaxation. 4. You tell me where I can get adventure and culture and relaxation. Do you like hamburgers? In your opinion, which chain burger is best? Love hamburgers. I'm going to say In-N-Out is the best. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. Thanks for watching, mate. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more high quality content.